Hey guys, what's up? It is week 368. Let's jump right into reviews for you. First up is going to be the Shinobi box set from Radiance Films. This is the first 3 films out of 8, all starring the same guy. He didn't live too much longer after these films, though, unfortunately. So the first one here is going to be Band of Assassins, made in 1965. This is region AB. Well, 62. Sorry, 62. Earlier in that. 65 was last week with the Japanese prison movies. Now we're talking about Japanese ninja movies. Shinobi. Shinobi is a title that I think most Americans will be vastly familiar with because the video game series. You know, it was infamous in the 80s and 90s, Shinobi, Ninja. It was just very popular in the States here. And it was very popular in Japan as well. So basically, they talk a little bit about the ninja kind of evolution of films in Japan on here on a bonus feature, which is a really great one. Kind of talk about the pre-World War II movies that almost all but vanished because we know what happened to Japan's films before World War II. A lot of them were lost forever. So, Shinobi Band of Assassins. This starts off, and I really didn't know where this was going to go, having the series and everything like this. And it's establishing our lead character here. And you know, with these kind of movies, the character, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this guy. At first, I couldn't find my footing. Who really was going to be the main character here? And we have this guy who's young. His father's alive. He is infatuated with becoming a ninja. It's absolutely all he ever cares about. There is a general here that's kind of leading this clan of ninjas, and there's multiple clans of ninjas around. And they're all kind of standing up to this guy who's looking to take over Japan. He's on a blood rampage. He's just killing everybody in sight, killing monks, killing women, killing children. He's vicious. Great actor. He looks very familiar. I can't think of the movies I've seen him in. He's just this big kind of brooding character, and he's just wrecking everything. He's on a murder spree, taking over all these places and making people bend to his will. The ninjas aren't going to stand for that. And at first, they're kind of whispering about him coming to attack. And eventually what happens is tragedy does ensue. Our lead character's father has a tragic kind of end. I don't want to spoil everything. But this is where it gets really strange. He's having an affair with the general's wife, who the general is keeping away from for some reason. And what happens is he's caught during this affair, and something accident happens, and now he is blackmailed. He is blackmailed to go to kill this warlord going around blindly. You know, he's like blackmailed and alone to go kill this warlord. Many ninjas have tried, and they've all failed. Good ninjas, too. You see them earlier in the film, kind of training. And this ninja has this, like, kind of naive kind of thing about him. Where, at first, I was like, he's so weird. And as he goes on, obviously, his nativity gets broken through all the tragedy that happens to him. So his mission is basically tracking down and taking out this assassin. And that's pretty much the plot of the film. I mean, this warlord. And I don't want to give everything away, but yeah, he kind of finds this woman along the way that he starts to have a relationship with. And yeah, this is a good film. There is kind of a twist here, a big kind of crazy ending with fights, and you kind of learn some things about the general and the manipulation, and also you learn that ninjas aren't strictly about fighting. They don't do all their techniques about fighting. There's a lot of, political espionage, turning people on turning, sharing secrets, all these kind of things like this. I'll get to the features at the very end of the whole series, but I really like this one. It was a great introduction to this series, and it did a really good character arc with the main ninja here, and I actually prefer the sequel because we already know who the character is and it's progressing. But yeah, the first one, Shinobi Band of Assassins, was a great introduction to the ninja series. Okay, the second one here is Shinobi 2, or Revenge. Shinobi Revenge. And yeah, this one opens up and we kind of learn that this warlord's still going on, and our main character is now kind of settled down. He has a wife, he has a kid, a young child, and he's kind of stayed away from the war kind of effort, although he's kind of dedicated himself to this other village. But of course this village starts to get pressed on by him, and he starts to vow basically to take out this general again. And he also has some help from this guy named Hanzo, which is a common Japanese character. I think Hanzo the Razor, I thought immediately. Which guys against each other. So we have an all-out battle. What I will say about these movies is, especially this one, it is very gory for the time, 62, 63. We're talking, this is like probably before what it was Blood Feast 63, I think. So this is before, you know, the big heyday of Herschel Gordon Lewis movies and Coffin Joe movies, and it's gory. The samurai movie actually portrays, you know, limbs being severed in gory fashion. And there's one thing that happens to a main character in here that my jaw dropped. I thought it was amazing scene, how it was done, how it was filmed. So our lead character is finally coming to his own as this very vengeful, very, you know, violent, kind of focused ninja. A lot of bad things happen to him in this movie, and he kind of leaves him very much alone. It's a tragic film. They don't pull any punches. It reminds me, this is going to be a weird comparison at the point of this. In one of the Hammer films, when all the characters run to Dracula's castle, one of the Hammer Draculas to kill him, I believe it is Scars of Dracula, and they come back and their entire family has been slaughtered. There's something in here that's kind of similar to that, which is really dark. But, you know, there's a new warlord that's going to take somebody's spot, right? And that's where he focuses his eye on this one. But this one ends in a crazy way, which I'm going to use another Hammer reference here. It ends at the end like kind of Curse of Frankenstein, and the sequel's going to open up like the sequel as well, Revenge for Frankenstein, or Frankenstein. So I'm comparing these to Hammer movies, which were in the 50s and 60s as well. I don't know if they actually took any inspiration from them. I highly doubt it. But there is kind of plot devices and things like that that leave a cliffhanger. But this one I thought was better than the first. I thought that, you know, the violence and the stuff that they have in here is pretty intense. This is Shinobi Revenge. Okay, now we're going to the third one here, and this is called Shinobi Resurrection. And where the second film left off, you're like, where the hell is this going to go? You're kind of shocked that they're even doing this, but they leave it on a cliffhanger, and they deliver the goods on this. It definitely plays into Hanzo helping out our lead character, this ninja that's in the shadows constantly helping him, but he has ulterior motives, of course. And, you know, Shinobi knows this. Shinobi does know this. He's a smart, intelligent ninja. Our lead character, I shouldn't just call him Shinobi, but our lead character here does know this. So, as it goes on, this one has a little bit more political stuff in here. We have this character who is kind of ruling. He has gone straight up higher, and our lead character is now considered dead. He doesn't care about any of this, and his head's supposedly on display, which is a really graphic, kind of crazy scene for the time. But he starts to rob and steal and basically get everybody around that, you know, I'm still alive, I'm still out there. And I'm from this ninja clan that supposedly is completely wiped out, and I'm coming for you. And he's going to do any means necessary. There's a great line in the second film. When our main character's caught, I believe it's the second film, with one of the characters who's looking to jump into the spout of power, that says, the day of the change of power due to a couple ninjas is over. And you're like, oh shit, now we've gotten to this point where, you know, it's politically a different environment, and the stakes are higher, you know, the bad guys are bigger, you know, there's more strings behind the scenes, there's more, you know, weapons and all these kind of things. But this one goes on and it ends almost in a, you know, I don't want to say it's unsatisfying, because I don't think that's the word to say it, but I think it ends right. You never see a movie where you expect to see like a brutal revenge or a brutal slaying, but the way it ends, you're like, yeah, that's probably how it's more historically would have ended, or something in those kind of vein. But yeah, the ending is pretty interesting, and I guess it's a punishment worse for death than our villain here. But this one, the ninja kind of gets behind the scenes, and he starts telling people these secrets, and he turns like this one character to basically make a fool of himself and turn everyone against each other. And by making these distractions and these waves within the ranks, he can sneak in and do what he has to do. And all his different kind of methods of poison and making people fall asleep, and there's these great weapons that they throw on the ground that people step on. So it's kind of in the vein, like you could tell it's super influential in American cinema in the 80s, or those, you know, canon ninja movies that were made and other things like that. I think that ninjas have become such a popular cultural reference in kung fu and martial arts and Japanese and Chinese and American movies that it's just insane. I mean, ninjas are every fucking where, and I think that this is a pretty good portrayal of ninjas being sneaky, killing people, assassins, true assassins, and the way that some of the people are killed with just poison down a string is crazy. As far as the special features are concerned, they have them here. Okay, on the back. Sorry about that. So we have high definition trailer, and then we have interview with Shoju Ikishiyama on director Satsuo Yamamoto, Mance Thompson on the brief history of Japanese ninja films. See, I love this because I don't, you know, the history of Japanese film is lost. He said over the 200 films, there's less than 10 minutes of footage left, or something along those lines, which is crazy to think. And then we have Toshiki Sato on the life and career of Razo Ichikawa, original trailers from 3 films, new and improved optional subtitles, and I think there's another documentary on here. There's an interview, yeah. But I love that ninja documentary. I'd really recommend it. There's some booklets in here. Radiance Films is releasing stuff. Like, I didn't really know about this series. Like, there's thousands of Japanese films, older ones, that I've, seen in passing, but it's hard to... this is definitely something, as I'm a big explorer of horror films, and I'll deep dive and find a million different horror movies from all around the country and the world and everywhere. No problem doing that. But when it comes to something broader, like a lot of other genres, I sometimes need people to not to be like more of a a curator for it, to show me and get me into ninja movies and stuff until I guess I'm a little bit more advanced to where I can start exploring these kind of things myself, knowing what to look for. But yeah, these Shinobi movies are pretty cool. I would like to see the other ones. I'm kind of curious where this story goes, because it ends on such a strange note of our character kind of wandering off alone as the kind of lone kind of ninja by himself. But good series from Radiance, doing great work. They both look really good. Would recommend for sure. Okay, next up is a 4K from Arrow Video, and this is Mute Witness, and this is from 1995, and this is a movie that I believe I had seen years ago, did not remember much about it, and this comes from a long line of films that are about making movies when something tragic goes while making a movie. So yeah, the big name in here, I 100% believe that's Alec Guinness in this special guest starring role. He's uncredited. I'm almost 110% sure that's Alec Guinness. I don't think that they could say who it is. The lead actress in here, she I don't know her name, but she is phenomenal. She plays a mute character. She can speak. She just uses sign language and everything like that, and of course she can hear. So they're in Russia making this kind of slasher film, and the director is an American. His girlfriend is also working for him. I can't remember what assistant director possibly. And the sister, the girlfriend, has a sister who our main character is, and she's a special effects artist named Billy, who is mute. So in the very beginning of the film, we obviously have a fake out, which is very infamous in a lot of these films, where they have the opening. They mention the special features a bunch of times, all the different movies that have the fake out openings, film within a film, and all the other kind of history of snuff films and all that kind of stuff like that. So I don't want to just exactly repeat what they say, but it very much does that, So what happens is, we have this really kind of poorly directed scene, actor not understanding things. We have the language barrier. It's kind of very funny and comical, and that kind of brings in this thing here that this movie has a weird streak of comedy in it. Now, a lot of the stuff is super dark, super intense action stuff, but then we'll have like this kind of strange comedy element. The director and his girlfriend all have kind of a silly kind of thing to them. There's also kind of a silly character moment where there's tons of noise being made, like in a violent, crazy moment, and the guy downstairs is like, "It's too loud," and you're just like, this is such a weird gag. There's other kind of moments like that there's like comedic elements when like rape was threatened seconds before, and it's not like your Last House on the Left or something like that. It's not in that vein. It's not that bad, but the movie, it just has a weird kind of comedic kind of bend to it, just slightly, with just the characters' actions that almost at times seem out of place, but in reality maybe they are a little bit realistic in certain aspects. And we're seeing it from the outside. There's obviously more comedy in it, and when you're not in the situation. So what happens is one night after they're wrapped filming, Billy comes back to do something for her special effects, to get ahead or something like that, to practice something, and she witnesses a couple of the crew filming something after hours, and it looks really strange. It's like a porno film, she thinks at first, but as it progresses, she realizes it turns into a snuff film. And the reason she 100% can tell it's a snuff film is she catches the eyes of the woman being murdered. And she just sees the absolute fear in it. And she's a special effects artist, knowing real from fake. She tries to escape. She gets away. It's a very close call. She goes to the police. She gets the director and her sister involved and everything like that. And these guys bring up some story. They covered their tracks, and they're telling everybody that's not real. But this is where the movie kind of takes into another layer. At first you think it's just a snuff ring, but there's more to it. There's a diskette that gets brought into the thing, and it's like, what is going on here? And I always felt that was kind of weird to have the snuff element in here, and then have that thriller espionage, like everybody's after this diskette and that character who's in the snuff. And that stuff, I don't know if it 100% works. It makes it bigger. It makes the threat scarier. It makes it seem like more of a, like political hiding, criminal kind of deal stuff, and it does kind of make for a what do they call that? A MacGuffin which works. But at the same time, like, is it needed? I don't know. I think that the snuff stuff in here, if that's the main focus, that's how they get rid of the people they want dead. It's just kind of a darker, grittier story. But what happens is Billy is, supposedly helped by this character who says he's a cop, and you never know really who to trust in here. There is a great scene in the apartment where they're chasing Billy, two criminals, and it's pretty intense, and she fights back, and she fights like hell. There's also like a scene in here where there's nudity for necessity, where she tries to flash somebody to get their attention, and I was like, that's crazy. Like, I mean, the actress in here is just really good at showing fear without screaming, and just her body actions, and she's just also overall likable. I think she's a very likable, intriguing character. And overall, I think Mute Witness is a good film. At the end of the day, I think it's good. I think it's a little kind of mixed up on what it wants to be, and that's probably, not mixed up. I think it knew what it was doing. I think that people watching it probably were a little confused. Is this a thriller? Is this a horror film? Is this, more of an action film? And I know people are like, well, those are all kind of combinations all the time, but they seem a little bit in three different worlds here at times. But I think Mute Witness is good. I thought it looked good and sounded good, and it's an interesting movie. The special features are really solid on here. We have some, old ones, of course, but we have 2 audio commentaries, one with the writer-director, and then we also have one with production designer and composer, and we have it moderated by critic Lee Gaiman, who just passed away, unfortunately. I didn't know that Lee Gaiman moderated it. I really wish I would have listened to that commentary. Now I feel like a complete and utter asshole. I didn't get a chance to listen to the commentary. I just got this yesterday, and I record every Friday, so I watched as much on here as I could. Lee Gaiman passed away, unfortunately. He did a lot of commentaries and worked on a lot of books and seemed like a genuinely overall really great guy. So R.I.P. Lee Gaiman. We have The Silent Death, brand new visual essay by author and critic Alexander Heller Nicholas, examining Mute Witness and its relationship with snuff films. This is pretty intriguing stuff. Mentioned Last House on Dead End Street and all these kind of other 8mm, and they go down the history of snuff in films. They don't mention August Underground, but I noticed that a lot of people kind of steer clear of mentioning that when they do the snuff film in these kind of video essays. I don't know if it's just that they're not familiar with it, they don't consider it, or they don't like it. Then we have The Wizard Behind the Curtain, brand new visual essay by author and critic Chris Alexander, exploring the phenomenon of a film within a film. I really like this. And early days I would hear Chris, I've seen a lot of his movies too, and I enjoy them to a certain extent. They're very low budget, but they're obviously inspired by Jess Franco and Jean Rollin and things of that nature. But, he worked for Fangoria, and some of the early commentaries they put on disc were more of like a kind of let's have fun and have a couple drinks, like the Nightmare City. But lately, as you'd hear them on all these things, like these video essays are really good, and this one was great, and it talks about tons and tons of different movies and self-awareness and all this kind of stuff in there. Very good. I love those kind of things. If you guys haven't noticed the visual essays I just try to kind of generally give a rundown and make comparisons. In fact, my favorite thing about talking about movies is making comparisons and through other films and saying this is like this reminds me of this did this, and this is this, and that's just the way my mind thinks, making these connections. And then we have the original location scouting footage, and we have snuff movie presentation produced to generate interest from investors and distributors, featuring interviews with the director and members of the creative team. And then we have, original footage with Alec Guinness, filmed a decade prior to the rest of Mute Witness. There we go. Is this the long story where they catch him in the airport? The director called him in the airport and asked him to do the scene. I think this is one. I think Brian Sauer talks about that on Pure Cinema Podcast or Just a Disc or something like that. And I think this is probably the movie where they cornered Alec Guinness in the airport and said, please do that. And then they used the footage. Did this director use it in a different movie? I don't remember it a long time ago. But it's okay. We have newly commissioned artwork by Adam Robales, illustrated collector's booklet featuring new writings on the film by Michelle Kisner, who is also really a great reviewer and film contributor. So yeah, Mute Witness, good stuff. Good release too. Looks great, sounds great. Interesting movie. It's one, especially from '95. When you think '95, it's the year before Scream, and a lot of people really hate that time frame. I like my sweet spot, honestly, as I always tell people, 1960 to 1995. It's just the stuff that I watch the most and like it. I like anything, honestly, before 1995 without prejudice. I think 1995 before. I think after that I start to get a little bit hung up on certain things that are, I think I'm biased to hold those films to a higher standard than I should. Although some of the stuff I absolutely love, like some of the foreign films, like Ebola Syndrome, or weird stuff, or independent stuff. But it's just a little different. But Mute Witness, good stuff. Check it out. Okay, we have one by Vinegar Syndrome, and this is from 1986. It's a Canadian film. This is Psycho Girls, and I never had seen this film. And I had an old VHS. Where is Psycho Girls? It's in the weird, bizarre yellow cases here, if I can find one. Here it is, right here. It was these old Amazon exclusives, so that's nice to have this behind you. And they used to have these Amazon exclusives. That's where my Burning tape came from. I had old Burning tape and Robot Holocaust tape like that. Hell, here's the Burning. If you guys ever see these, they were on cut, which is nice, and I had a Robot Holocaust too. But we're talking about Psycho Girls here. So I popped this in, and it has VHS inserts are on cut, but it's in HD, it's in full screen. But then the VHS ones, they're standard def and they're uncut gore, and they cut out a lot of stuff. So this is a weird movie. The term Psycho Girls, you get it at the end, but I don't think it's a great title. Honestly, I think. But so in the very beginning, we have this little girl who poisons her parents in a kind of crazy fake out scene. Not a fake out, but a kind of surprise scene. Pretty depressing stuff. And she gets sent to a mental institution. So we see the doctor at this mental institution talking to the person's sister, saying, "Listen, we need you to sign a paper. She's cured. We want to let her out." Yada. And the sister says, "I'm not signing nothing. I want her away from me for the rest of my life. I never want to see her again." Yada yada yada. We fast forward a little bit, and this woman is now cooking for this kind of, this writer, this pulp writer, who has this kind of, these sandwiches, the movie, his opening and closing or whatever, and he does it in a film noir detective style, which is strange. And he's very Canadian. He's like, and I'm just exaggerating, but you get the point. Like, this is one of these movies where like, is this American? I don't think it is. It's kind of an accent in there. So what happens is this she's cooking for this family, so she's there cooking for a dinner party, steak tartare, if you will, and her sister escapes, and there's a brutal murder in here of the doctor, and there's a nasty scene with there's actually a skull, and I think they added that in, but some of the gore is pretty good. I thought that the skull scene where they're taking off the flesh from the skull looked really good. There's tons of nudity in this film, a lot of stuff like that. In the very beginning, like we said, this doctor is sleeping with a prostitute, snorting coke, he's all messed up, and he's just insane as more than his patients and whatnot, and there's some nudity in that scene, and then we go on, we have this big kind of talkative moment where the sister kind of switches spots with the sister, says, "Hey, I'm showing up for my sister," yada yada. They don't know the story, of course. She's a psycho girl. So what happens is they're having these big discussions, arguing with each other about, psychology and human nature and big dialogues like that until they're all poisoned. They wake up in a mental institution, and our psycho girl here has two helpers, Waldo and I can't remember the other guy's name, but they're obviously probably from the mental institution as well, and they're at this abandoned mental institution, which is kind of scary to be drugged back to a mental institution that these people used to be treated at, and now you're there and they're just like their old stomping grounds. It's kind of disturbing, actually. So they start to kind of torture them, and it's up for them to try to survive and get out of there. It's got a goofy tone because the characters are so over the fucking top, wild and weird, and there's a scene where they argue, they do this kind of like do voices in movies, and they're like, "Well, that's so-and-so from this movie, so-and-so from this movie." I don't know if it's the director or the writer flexing their kind of film knowledge or their film dorks or whatever, but maybe these characters are just supposed to be that way. But I mean, anybody that's directing movies probably is a film dork, let's be honest, unless you're like so jaded you're just making movies just for the sheer hell of it. And there are some, but what goes, and some they make good movies too. But as it goes on, there's some gore, some violence, some nudity, and overall, Psycho Girls is pretty decent. Some of the dialogue is a little hard on the ears, and the ending is whatever. It's kind of a fake out, but you really don't give a shit. There's plenty of sex, plenty of nudity. Some gore, although they're inserted VHS scenes within the movie, they still work really well. Overall, I like Psycho Girls. I think it is entertaining enough and weird enough and zany enough to be enjoyable. And a lot of the characters feel like they be in the background of Dr. Caligari or something. So here's what we have. Yeah, I'm not talking about the cabinet of Dr. Caligari. I'm talking about the weird-ass one from the late 80s, early 90s. So as far as the special features, newly scanned and restored in 2K from its 35 inner positive, brand new commentary track with co-screenwriter, director, Jerry Ciccoritti, and director of photography Robert Bergman. Filming Canadian style, interview with the director. Psycho team effort, interview with Robert Bergman. A career built on Psycho Girls, an interview with director Craig Richards. Audio interview with author and film historian Paul Kurupe. And yeah, it has good features on there. pretty interesting stuff, talking about the movies they made and how this came to be, and really not thinking about it much after it was made, moving on to the next low budget title. Canon International put this out, distributed it back in the day. But yeah, I enjoyed it for the most part. It's an MGM, of course. Like I said, it has that MGM tape over there. I think I had a Robot Holocaust, if you guys can see it somewhere. Maybe it's right here. Yeah, Robot Holocaust. So I had like 3 of those MGM tapes. But yeah, Psycho Girls. And all of them have been released on Blu-ray now, thankfully. And some 4K even. But yeah, Psycho Girls, good stuff. Let's get into those 1982 movies.
I know I'm human. If you were all these things, then you just attack me right now. So some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation. It'll fight if it has to. But it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over, then it has no more enemies. Nobody left to kill it. And then it's won.
You son of a bitch, you moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you? You son of a bitch, you left the bodies and you only moved the headstones! You only moved the headstones! Why? Why?
For a girl like you to come into my life, I've been waiting for a girl like you, the love that will survive. I've been waiting, someone new to make me feel alive. Yeah, waiting for a girl like you to come into my life.
You bitch! You call me a bitch!
What's in the basket?
Open season!
How do we know she is alive?
Say, please stop it. There's no more time. You've got to. Please stop it. Stop it now. Turn it off. Turn it off. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
First up, by Gary Graver, is Trick or Treats. That's right. And this movie's got a nice little cast in here. First, let me not forget anybody. We got Peter Jason, David Carradine, Carrie Snodgrass, Steve Railsback. That's right. And Paul Bartel makes a cameo. Gary Graver, 2 years previous, did a movie called The Attic. with Carrie Snodgrass. Carrie Snodgrass delivers an excellent performance. The Attic is a pretty solid horror film with Ray Milland and Carrie Snodgrass. So I was like, Trick or Treats. You know, I had heard only bad things about it. Apparently, you guys did not sell this enough on how bad this fucking thing was, man. Jeez, I'm holding the whole entire horror community responsible for this fucking atrocity. I'm exaggerating. I'm being hyperbolic, but at the same time, Trick or Treats is pretty rough stuff. So it's a Halloween ripoff, but it's almost as if the writer or director was like, you know, we want to make Halloween. We take out all the horror. We want no horror, but we want Halloween. We want it to take place around. We want it to be on Halloween. We want an escaped convict go into his home, and we want no horror movie stuff. We want comedy, bad comedy. We want actors that are pretty solid doing shitty jobs, just wandering through the fucking set half drunk. That's what we want. We'll call it Trick or Treats. We'll sell 1 million. But honestly, it's more of a ripoff of Nightmares and A Damaged Brain, which came out the year previous. It's the same fucking plot. It literally is the same plot with the same fucking ending. Okay, so Trick or Treats, here we go. In the very beginning of the movie, which is the best part and the most bizarre part, Carrie Snodgrass and her husband, Peter Jason, from the Walter Hill and John Carpenter films, are sitting outside having coffee. He's ready to go to his work commute. Seems fairly normal. And a couple guys show up with kind of orderlies. They're going to take him to the mental institution. One of them is actually one of the bad guys from Looker from '81, great movie. And he's a big thug, and Looker, he's a big thug in this too. He looks kind of like Randall Tex Cobb, sorry. So there's this elongated scene where they're trying to pull him in and they fall in the pool, and it's like a fucking mess, but it's funny as fuck. So he goes to the mental institution. A few years later, Carrie Snodgrass remarries David Carradine. She has this kid from that marriage, and it's played by the director's son, I believe, Chris Graver, it's gotta be, and he is a monster. He is just this practical joke mad magician monster. He does all these tricks on our babysitter all the time. Our babysitter shows up. Not a great performance. It's really weird. It's really strange. I don't know if she's foreign and doesn't speak English very well. It comes across like that. Pretty bad performance, not gonna lie, in this movie. And the other lead performance is the kid in here, and the kid is ungodly fucking annoying. I would have killed this kid 10 times. I literally would have. So and I'm not exaggerating, every 3.5 minutes, kid's doing some other bullshit magic trick to piss her off. It's a movie that would be great to watch with a group because you'd be cracking the fuck up the whole time. But watching yourself, you're just like, I hate this little fucker. At the same time, Peter Jason has escaped from the mental institution. He's trying to get back home because he's pissed off. He's going to take Carrie Snodgrass out. He keeps running into all these bizarre characters. Did I mention he's dressed as a nurse? He runs into Paul Bartel as a drunk and some other people. It's just nonsense. It's pure comedy crap. It's not listed as a comedy. This movie's not listed as a comedy, but I thought it was trying to be funny. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I has to be because the director's not this bad. Like, his other movie is pretty good. So, that I've seen. I know he worked on some pornos as well, Cary Graver, I believe. And maybe he's a cinematographer on bigger films. I'm pretty sure he did cinematography on the Orson Welles, The Other Side of the Wind, possibly. But anyways. So, David Carradine's in this, and he's the new married to Carrie Snodgrass, and he's sleepwalking through this fucking thing. And Steve Railsback's the babysitter's boyfriend. She calls him up and he's just in a play and he's just unhinged as fucking this. You know, Steve Railsback can be good. You know, see him in certain things, you're like, the very good performance of Steve Railsback. He's completely crazy. And other times you're like, what the fuck is Steve Railsback doing? That's how I feel about Steve Railsback. I'm always just like, what the fuck is he doing? But this is weird. This is strange. There are times when I literally laughed out loud at the kid as performance because it's so weird, and he's just like, how about some of that wine? Yeah! And you're just like, ugh, fuck my life. Trick or Treats. It's funny, but I don't know if it's supposed. It has to be partially funny, but it's also tedious. And it also is just fucking weird, and it feels very shameless ripoff. And I don't have problems with ripoffs, even shameless ripoffs when they're entertaining as shit. I'm looking at you, Bruno Mattei, but this one is just, boring too, and bland, and it's more of a ripoff of a ripoff. Anyways, it's from Code Red Blu-ray here. First time I watched Trick or Treats. I might watch it again. I'm stupid. Somebody puts here Halloween, but with a meatloaf-looking dude in drag. Okay, more enjoyable than most run-of-the-mill slasher films. I don't even call this a slasher film. The kill count's really low, but I guess it is. Brand new, high-def master, original 35. Then we audio commentary stars Jackie Gurnau, Peter Jason, Chris Graver, and cinematographer R. Michael Stringer. Moderated by Sean Graver. Audio interview with actor Steve Railsback. Watching Katrina's bucket list mode. That's right. Yeah. Apparently John Blythe Barrymore's in here too. I don't know when I saw him. I'm trying to think where he would have been in here. Like I said, cast better than the movie. Trick or Treats. Okay, So, this is where you guys are like, Dave, you're being too hard on Trick or Treats. You just don't like nothing. I'm about to make a complete fool of myself because I popped this bad boy in by Greydon Clark, 1981. There's 4 horse spoofs made in 1981. 4 of them. And the year prior, we had Saturday the 14th, That Creature Wasn't Nice, and Student Bodies, of course. These are all in line with Student Bodies. This is Wacko by Greydon Clark. Greydon Clark directed stuff like Uninvited, Without Warning, The Return, Joysticks, Black Shampoo. I've seen a lot of Greydon Clark movies, and the more I see, the more I just kind of like Greydon Clark. I really always liked Without Warning and Uninvited, and I really like Joysticks, surprisingly, and Wacko is no different. And this is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. But it's supposed to be. And it's a parody, and it's ridiculous. So listen to the commentary. Greydon Clark said, you got to start with a good script. He bought this script. And then he went to get the budget and everything, and he got the budget, and he started trying to find bigger actors to fill the movie. So this is a horse spoof, and there is a lawnmower pumpkin-head killer. Yes, Blades is also a lawnmower killer guy, right? But a pumpkin-head lawnmower killer. At the very beginning of the fucking movie, it kills this woman and her boyfriend, and 4 kids witness it. Now we are following the sister who witnessed the murder of her sister, and her parents are played by Stella Stevens and George Kennedy. And that's really what makes the difference in this movie is the cast. The cast is really solid in here. We also have Andrew Dice Clay, very young, playing a horny student, and we have Joe Don Baker as an unhinged detective. Was also in Joysticks. George Kennedy was an Uninvited by Greydon Clark. So these guys are returning. It's what's so stupid about this thing is absolutely, in the Airplane mold. And these movies probably would have never been made if Airplane wasn't a hit. But they're in that weird parody space, right? So Joe Don Baker is absolutely obsessed with catching this lawnmower killer. So he is driving around unhinged, and there's points in this film which I laughed hysterically, and I'm just an idiot. I know I am, but I have a really dumb sense of humor. And I watched this with my friend, and we were both cracking up really hard. Joe Don, he does the whole, Billy Madison, I know from experience. No, you don't. But it's a little different. He's like, all right, here's what happened. And he starts telling the story, and he's like, it's like this crazy, gross, perverted story. He's like, no, that didn't happen. And he goes and tells another one until eventually he tells the real story, why he's so hard up on this lawnmower killer. And there is a great gag in here where George Kennedy's talking about razor blades and apples, and I don't want to spoil it. It had me literally in tears. And George Kennedy always plays it straight. He's in the Naked Gun movies, which is brilliant. And these are after that. So Kennedy always plays it straight. You wouldn't... he's funny and cool and Luke, but he's playing it. He's got that character, right? But George Kennedy playing it straight is just so good in this. He's a pervert watching, his daughters, in the shower, just mowing the lawn. And, it's so dumb. It is so dumb. But there's so many throwaway lines and goofy moments in here that had me cracking up. I couldn't believe this was this funny to me. He's like, I haven't slept a wink since this original crime happened. You hadn't slept in 13 years? He's like, no, I hadn't. I'm only 31 or something like that. And he's clearly 50 years old. But man, Joe Don Baker in this is gold. He's perfect. He plays it so weird and brilliant, and the story Greydon Clark tells on the commentary about him, he seems like a real cool guy. He's got nothing but nice things to say, but Stella Stevens is really funny in here too, and the lead is pretty strong as well. The side character, Scott Endis ended up being a Joystick, so there's a lot of people in this movie that I think really sell it. And this isn't going to be for everybody. It is incredibly stupid. It is losing brain cells as you watch stupid, but it's supposed to be. As far as the special features, brand new audio commentary with Greydon Clark, which I enjoyed. Die Laughing interview with cinematographer Nicholas von Sternberg. Never before seen outtakes, original trailer, reversible cover art, English subtitles. You know what? I almost like this as much as Student Bodies, if not more. It obviously parodies a bunch of movies, but I think that I like the cast better in here. And I'm a sucker for just actors that I like doing weird and goofy and shit and having fun. And this is all this movie's about. This is fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of silliness. And I think that I think Joysticks is funny too. So maybe Greydon Clark just did, he's got a line to my funny bone or something like that. But I know he edited it himself as well. But yeah, this is really fun stuff. Check it out if you've never seen Wacko in 1982. All right, the next one here is from 1982 as well, and it's another horror parody called Pandemonium. That's right, directed by Alfred Soul, who directed a porno film, and of course, Alice, Sweet Alice in 1976, which is a gem of a horror film if you've never seen it. Really recommend it. Great kind of American-style giallo proto-slasher. Great movie. But Pandemonium by Alfred Soul. I had never seen this one, and I just watched Wacko. Me and my friend thought it was great. We're like, oh, fucking loved Wacko. Let's put in Pandemonium in 1982, another horror parody. How can we go wrong? Well, we went pretty wrong. I don't know if we were just all laughed out, but Pandemonium didn't do much for me. I don't know why. It was alright. I'll give it that. It's got a good cast. Got Carol Kane in here. Got Paul Rubens, Judge Reinhold's got a small little thing from Phil Hartman in here. And Tab Hunter. So you're like, nice fucking cast in this thing. And I just said the cast made all the difference in the last picture. And this one has a good cast. It should be good. Carol Kane's fine in it. And it also has... the best part of the movie has a cameo by Sidney Lassick. Okay, now, what happens in the very beginning of this movie is there's a cheerleader group, squad, and they're all killed with a long javelin all together. And so somebody who was purged away from the cheerleader squad wants to start her own cheerleading squad, so she brings in a mixed group of guys and girls. They're all stupid names like Mandy, Candy, Randy, Brandy, whatever the fuck. They're all named like that. And there's a funny gag in here when they're talking about candy. It's like, I don't want any candy, Brandy. Do you want some candy, Randy? And it's that part made me laugh. That's fucking some who's on first base stuff. What? No, what's on second? You know, the fucking Abbott Costello thing. It's not as good as that, but yeah, it's in that kind of vein. And I got a kick out of that. So some of this I like, but Carol Kane's kind of a Carrie character. And there is a scene, I'm spoiling this because I absolutely have to. It's just the best selling point of the movie, so close your ears for 35 seconds if you don't want to hear it. There's a scene where she's ready to go, and her mother talks to her about dirty pillows. And, you know, she's like, you're not supposed to go, dirty pillows. They're not my dirty pillows. And Sidney Lassick, I shit you not, from Carrie, and Alligator, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and a million other movies. Basically, from Carrie, though, he walks over and he's like, they're my dirty pillows. And he's in the movie for like 10 seconds. And I was like, why the fuck is Sidney Lassick just come in here and do this one cameo? It's really funny, though, and I was like, I kind of love that. I was like, that ain't Sidney Lassick. That ain't fucking him for real. And because he's one of my favorite character actors, Cheswick from Cuckoo's Nest. So I was like, that was great. That was a great little moment. But, you know, as it goes on, it kind of plays like a Friday the 13th movie. There's even scenes like, let's do the strip Monopoly, similar to that. It is in the vein of a Friday the 13th parody. It's really goofy, it's really silly, and at the end, it just didn't do much for me, you know. I don't remember that much. It kind of bleeds in with a lot of the other ones, which is unfortunate. And it just, I remember not laughing as much. I remember being a little bored with it. I just thought Paul Rubens was really not fucking funny in this. See, a lot of the key to parody for me is either you have to have a certain kind of comedy or you got to play it straight. And Paul Rubens, I don't think, is capable of playing it straight. He's just too zany, and like, I know people find his humor really funny and other things, and it's fucking Pee Wee Herman, right? You know, obviously very talented guy. Didn't think he was very funny in Pandemonium, thought his jokes kind of fell flat. There's like this mechanical horse in there, which is kind of funny, but I just don't find Paul Rubens very funny in this. That's on me, though. But as far as the special features are concerned, I do like Carol Kane, though. Of course, One Stranger Calls. So we have Dying of Laughter interview with director Alfred Soul and promotional still gallery. And newly scanned and stored from the 2K from the 35 Interpositive United Artists. So yeah, I kind of like some of it. Other stuffs I do not like. I just don't like, you know, some of the characters in here aren't great. And every one of these has to have a musical number. There's a musical number in Wacko, which is maybe the worst scene in the movie. When, you know, Andrew Dice Clay goes down the stairs. There's a musical number in here, which is There's a musical number in the next two. But Pandemonium, it's okay. I can't not recommend it because I am a sucker for anything, you know, from that certain time frame, and I'll watch it. And I'll like it even out of a historical curiosity, to be honest. So yeah, there we go. The next one here from 1982 is National Lampoon's Class Reunion. Now, like, that don't look like no horror movie. And it is a slasher kind of deal. And it opens up in that classic slasher kind of phase here. As far as the characters in here, we got Garrett Graham and Stephen Frust, I think, is the biggest name. And Michael Lerner is also in here. Garrett Graham. Garrett Graham. No, Garrett. Yeah, it's Garrett Graham. It's not Garrett. Yeah, there it is. Garrett Graham from Chud 2, Phantom of Paradise, a bunch of movies. I really like him. I think he's very funny. He's in Beware the Blob as well. But so he's a big star in this one. Stephen Frust was kind of like from Animal House, National Lampoon's Animal House, and he pops up in the Unseen and you know, some other things like that. And Michael Lerner's a great actor. You know, No Escape and just a lot of films in general. A couple Coen brother movies. So what the thing is, so we have Class Reunion. And of course, it is what it is. In the very beginning, we have all these kind of students that play a real awful prank on this guy, and they put this girl in a brown paper bag, and he makes out with her, and it's tragic. It's, you know, your typical kind of 1980s kind of prank in a movie. You know, think Revenge of the Nerds, but funny, like, these pranks get so out of hand, like Terror Train, you're like, that's not a prank, that's fucking definitely a crime, or something like that. It's like, they borderline, like, sexual fucking crimes all the time, and like, assaults. It's weird as fuck. And they're like, it's a prank. It's like, it's like nowadays when people, like, stealing guys' wallets, like, it's a prank, bro. It's like, you just fucking stole my wallet, I'm gonna hit you in the face. But, you know, so anyways, they all get a class reunion thing, they all come back, and they're all kind of, you know, Garrett Gray's a douchebag, he's still that guy, and they're all over-the-top characters. One of the characters, you know, at the very beginning, they have this weird thing, this yearbook thing, most likely to sell their soul to the devil, all these kind of weird things. There's a blind woman in here, and she's deaf, and there's all these jokes and gags with her where she can't hear. Everybody's incredibly fucking horny in here trying to have sex, and what happens is somebody comes in, and they pick somebody off. The killer's really weird. I think they're wearing a brown paper bag over their head, being really bizarre. Michael Lerner comes in, he's like, I was his doctor, we gotta stop him. And the killer doesn't kill as many people as you expect. There's a couple, like, kind of potheads that are making jokes, sitting around completely out of it. You know, the humor is not great. It's very, very stupid and very of the time. And I feel like the cast is having a good time. I feel like it's almost like a lot of in-jokes. I feel like all the people are having fun, or maybe it's just like, you ever watch like an old SNL skit where, like, at the time it was like, it's great, and then, like, it just doesn't hold up. I mean, I love SNL, but some of the stuff doesn't hold up, but it was just a hit at the time. I feel like this didn't do well, but I bet it didn't do horrible either. But I'm just saying, like, I feel like a lot of this stuff would have been more funny at the time. I just don't think that a lot of this stuff ages particularly well. But there's two characters that are complete opposites. One's like this rich kind of fancy woman, and one's kind of this crazy, you know, counterculture, like, possessed person. She breathes fire, you know, sold her soul to the devil. So we have all these references. Like, there's a bunch of references to Exorcist, and this one and the last one. People puking pea green soup and a bunch of these horror parodies. Obviously, Exorcist was still popular. But, of course, the killer starts picking people off, and that's about it. There's a character that nobody remembers. That's his whole character. It's like, I don't remember you. It's like, oh, I remember you guys. But that's pretty much it. It's not great. It's a slasher kind of parody. The kill count's not very high. It's way more comedy than horror. And, you know, the characters are all right. Stephen Frears plays, like, the world's grossest guy. He's all right in it. But, you know, for the most part, I think this is probably... Is it weaker than Pandemonium? Around the same level. I didn't love it. The musical number in here is and there's a whole, like, dancing at the end scene where it's like, you know, like in The Great Outdoors they do it, and you're like, I love this, but that's not a parody. But you're like, I like these characters, it seems real. This, you're just like, all right, this is not the kind of, this, I don't know, I feel like it's like doesn't fit, like, you just don't give a fuck. Maybe I'm just being, like, really negative on this. I don't hate it. It's just, it didn't work for me, you know. It really wasn't my thing. I think I recognized, and I should have double-checked this, I think I recognized the girl from Friday the 13th Part 2, the one who, you know, the girl with the guy in the wheelchair, she sprays everything and whatnot. I think she was in here, and I think she had one of the best performances or funniest characters when she's kind of, you know, talking to a priest, and she's going on all the things, like, she's like, I'm a voyeur, she's just confessing all these fucked up things, and her husband's like, oh my god. That's kind of a funny gag. I enjoyed that. That was good stuff. But class reunion. As far as the special features, we have audio commentary with director Michael Miller and stunt coordinator Dean Raphael Fernandini, moderated by filmmaker Douglas Hosdale. Interview with star Garrett Graham, who I love. So yeah, it's all right. All right, now the last horror parody of 1982 is Hysterical, and like this stars three brothers, I think they are, and I can't remember their names, but two of them play kind of these goofy, kind of silly characters, and one's like the main character and whatnot. And they're kind of like the main leads in here. Now, I didn't find them very funny or endearing, and I don't want to be rude. That's just the way I felt. And they're pretty much front and center in this movie. The side actors and characters I actually liked. You have Julie Newmar in here. You have Richard Kiel. You have Murray Hamilton. You have Clint Walker. So you got a nice... you have John Larroquette in here popping up. So you got a nice little cast. A lot of these comedic little parodies have some fucking really strong cast. So in the very beginning of this movie, we had this this guy... What do they call that? Jeez. He's a lighthouse keeper. And he has started an affair with this woman. And his wife's coming back that day. And it's Richard Kiel. Jaws, of course. From James Bond. and The Longest Yard, and a slew of other films, Happy Gilmore. And he tells her, get lost. My wife's coming back. There's a big storm. And she says, how dare you do this to me? There's a big fight. He gets knocked over into the water. She electrocutes herself on the lighthouse. The wife drowns because the boat can't see the light. Big tragedy. That's 100 years previous. And we have this new guy kind of moving into this area. He's a famous author. He writes horror novels, gross novels, and exploitation, nasty stuff. And, he doesn't enjoy doing this. He wants to write some classic literature. So he goes to this small town. And the weird parody in here right away, he runs into John Deal, and he's doing a taxi driver thing, and he's in a taxi driver outfit. Really bizarre cameo in here. Silly, weird stuff. So and that's the only scene that he's in. And he goes to tells everybody he's moving in his house. They all freak out. But one of the weirdest gags in the entire film, in the very beginning here, is... This is super weird, because Murray Hamilton is in this movie as the mayor, basically playing a similar character that he played in Jaws as the fucking mayor. So, in the beginning, there's a boat driving, and John Larroquette's giving these tour, and he's being a dick, and Richard Keel's body jumps on the boat. And at first they do a whole like it's Jaws, which is funny because he plays Jaws, and it's like so everybody thinks it's a shark, yada yada. It's not, of course. And then they go back to the mayor's office, and Clint Walker's the sheriff, and he's like, "I'm telling you, it's a shark. We gotta bring in some people." And it's just like he's doing the whole Robert Shaw thing, and Murray Hamilton's doing the whole "I'm the mayor, it's not a shark." And then we just had Jaws, everybody mistaking for actual Jaws. It's just so weird and so bizarre. So they call in a couple paranormal guys because this body looks strange, and they're these goofy kind of pair of brothers that are always arguing and doing all these weird things. They're kind of in a fight with Dracula when they're first called, and it's a super goofy movie. I did like that weird idea of Jaws being in the water and then Murray Hamilton. I like that idea, but these guys, obviously Richard Kiel comes back, and then we have the ghost in the lighthouse looking to take our lead character for a mate, all that kind of stuff happening. But Richard Kiel starts to infect people as like these weird kind of zombie things, and it almost has like a weird comedic, it definitely has a weird comedic element, but a bizarre kind of zany tone to it. And I think maybe remastered I might appreciate this a little bit better. But and there's like everybody gets turned into these zombies, and it has this big elaborate dance scene at the end of the film where they're all zombies kind of dancing the whole town, and you're like, well, this predates Thriller by like a year. I think Thriller's 84, so you're just like, oh, this predates Thriller, this predates a lot of stuff, and the weird kind of goofy zombies, it predates Chud 2. Like people are like, Chud 2's not a zombie. It's a fucking zombie movie, all right? And it's just might as well be Return of the Dead 3, to be honest. But that's just the thing, is like it has this weird goofy tone and zaniness, and I should even say Return of the Dead 2 itself. It's kind of like, but no, it's not as good as those ones, or as good as something like The Midnight Hour. It just doesn't really ever come together. And there's a big musical dance number, of course, in here with the zombies. And I hate saying this, it's just I didn't care too much for the two comedic duos. There's three of them, and I think they're all related. But the two main ones, I just like the goofy guys. They're just not very funny. And Jeremy saw part of this, and he said it looks like they're just constantly trying to outdo each other, and they're not giving each other any moments to break. It just looked like they were just trying too hard, and it just didn't. For me, it didn't work. I didn't find them very funny. And if a movie's a comedy and it doesn't land any of the jokes, it's hard to be positive about it. I didn't hate it. I don't love it. There's things to like about it. The cast, the side characters are pretty good. I mean, like you said, it's got a nice little cast in there. And what other movies you're going to get to see Murray Hamilton and as a zombie? Probably not very many, right? But that is Hysterical. It is not, but it might be worth your time if you're interested. Okay, for the Patreon pick, I got the 1968 movie by Ingmar Bergman, Shame. And this was a first-time watch. It has Liv Ullmann and Max von Sydow in it. It also has the other lead that Bergman uses all the time, from The Seventh Seal and Wild Strawberries. Excellent actor. I can't think of his name. I know that's really shitty of me, but this one I had never seen. And it takes place during a civil war in this country. And, Max von Sydow and Liv Ullmann are just kind of farmers, and they kind of mind their own business and keep to themselves. But this war is constantly entangled in their lives and whatnot. And Max von Sydow in the very beginning seems very timid and very, kind of wimpy, and just has a heart ailment and just kind of weak all around. He couldn't go to war because of it. Liv Ullmann seems to be the more kind of quiet, aggressive type, very irritated with her husband. And as you watch this film progresses, as all these horrible things come to them, and they make all these decisions where there's infidelity about survival and just being kind of petty, which involves revenge and all these kind of things, and having to do things you don't want to do during war and all these traumatic events. the characters completely change by the end of it, and they're no longer who you think they are, and they fight so damn hard to make it through this thing, and they go through so much grueling, horrible torture, and at the end of the movie, you're just like, for what? For what, man? It really is for what? And it's just a fucked up moment, and it reminds me of things like Come and See, like just that stop kind of movement when the movie starts, that war kind of thing where it never stops for you. And there's scenes where literally they're driving and there's a lot of chaos and bombs and death all around them and all these kind of things like that, where they're being kind of forced from both sides and yelled at and talked to, and you're just like, this is really disturbing and crazy. And the performance by the guy from Seventh Seal, I can't think of his name, but it's so intense, it's so sad at the same time, and just so grody. There's moments when he's sitting with them and they're drinking, and it's just a unpleasant moment. But it's such a good scene, so intense. It's a full screen. I think Bergman's all movies were shot in that kind of aspect ratio. But it's Bergman. His movies are awesome. I've seen like just 5 or 6 of them, and they're all really great. And I know the ones that people think I would like best, like Hour of the Wolf, is probably my least favorite. That and Serpent's Egg. I kind of prefer like Wild Strawberries and Shame and stuff like that, which in Seventh Seal. It's just these movies, I like all of them, but I'm just saying, like, there's just something about some of this stuff, how he talks about human nature and interactions and the change and what war can do to somebody like that. But it's just fucked up. Next Man Side Out is great. Liv Ullmann is spectacular in the ending of this movie. There's times when I watch this movie and I see people I know in these positions. Like, I can visualize, like, just watching, like, this reminds me of someone I know. That movement reminded me of someone I know. And there's a scene where Liv Ullmann and Max von Sydow get in an argument, and they're like, and it's really sad and brutal. And he's sitting there, and he starts rubbing his hands on uncomfortability. And like I said, there's that fragile thing of guys when they're really nervous or really feel awful or shy or something, they'll do things or just feel bad about something, and they won't be able to sit still. Just watch it. Watch good actors do it in movies. Like I said, I always use the reference in Unforgiven when Clint Eastwood, after he shoots the guy, the first guy in Unforgiven, and he's sitting there and he's like, he's not looking up at anybody. He won't make eye contact. He won't look at what he's done. He's just picking at something, picking at a rock and something like in that aspect. And like I said, I've seen guys do that. And I've seen my dad do it. That's why I think, like, a lot of these kind of characters in there, I see, like, that character in my dad, like that point in that Clint Eastwood movie. Not so much this one, but I've seen real people at Max von Sydow's performance and Liv Ullmann's performance. And it's just like, that adds a sense of realism. This feels very real. And, and just dark. And it never really has a moment of what's the word I'm looking for here? There's never any closure. These movies really don't have closure. And when you're young, you're like, I want closure. I want to know what happened to every character, every detail. But as you get old, you're like, there is no closure. There's never closure. So if you want realism, you can say goodbye to closure in a lot of ways. So, if there's too much closure in a movie, then I guess it's more of a fairy tale. And they sometimes film it that way. Look at Taxi Driver. The last moments of Taxi Driver is a little bit of closure, but it also feels like a dream. So what do you say? Anyway, Shame. Great stuff. Obviously, Ingmar Bergman. What the fuck can I say? Loved it. Great performances, too, by the 3 main leads in here. Just amazing stuff. Let's get these questions, comments, concerns, and all that jazz. McMansion 8672 with Discrot. I'm in a standard climate and keep everything controlled with humidity and all. It's crazy that CD and DVD Blu-ray manufacturers have actually gone on record to say that the lifespan is about 20 years at most, with exceptions, and those exceptions don't have any rhyme or reason. The Discrot I've experienced have been from discs that have no visual sign or of anything, and then you play it in 30 minutes in and you won't play much anymore. Or sections that all of a sudden stop playing. I had an Angel Heart disc that is about 10 years old now, and the section of the film, the commentary track audio plays over the regular section. It's insane. No idea. What's funny, though, is like we're constantly replacing our DVDs with Blu-rays and then 4K, so it's like sometimes we won't even register the disc rot, maybe until you put a disc in that's never really had a release. A lot of the times what I will do is I watch a lot of old movies and that are only on DVD on streaming services, because they're in HD there sometimes if they've never had a proper Blu-ray. So it's rare that I have to pop in a DVD, and occasionally I've done it, and I haven't noticed too much problems, but doesn't mean there isn't any. There's a lot of disc in this room. I'm sure some of them got the disc rot. Ken Coakley, I have a few movies to talk about. Dead Dream, my second favorite Bob Clark film. Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things is my first. I was around when the Vietnam War was going on. A friend of my sister's was drafted. He was a hippie who looked like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. We were afraid that he would return in a coffin or wheelchair. Not only did he survive, he made a 40-year career in the Marine Corps. John Marley was a great actor, so I wasn't surprised by his great performance as a father who went through the tragedy of being a Gold Star parent only to have his son come back alive or undead. Marley was in 2 films that saved Paramount Pictures from bankruptcy, Love Story, and The Godfather. Now to movie starring an actor who worked with Bob Clark, Death Valley. Peter Bingsley wasn't in A Christmas Story yet, but it was in a TV show called Real People. Paul Lamont was great as the mom's boyfriend. Lamont was in American Graffiti, which is one of my all-time favorite films, and he was in the Lovers on the Run drive-in movie called Bobby and Rose. I did see Aloha, Bobby and Rose. That's a good film. I reviewed it on here, actually, which haunted me for a long time. I love the scene in Death Valley where he tries to impress Billingsley character. Last name's so hard for me to say. By talking about Jesse James and Billy the Kid knowing each other. That's such a funny scene too, because he's like, they never knew each other. Stephen McHattie was great as the villain. When he sings the commercial jingle, "Reach Out and Touch Someone," I thought it was hilarious. For a long time, I forgot Catherine Hicks was the mom. I always thought it was Candy Clark. Crimson Peak. I first saw it first time as a recommendation from a clerk at Bull Moose in New Hampshire. I was very impressed with Charlie Hunnam in the film. He's good. I always knew he was British, even though he was in Sons of Anarchy with American accent. His fate in Sons of Anarchy was exactly like Ed Harris's fate in Night Riders. Great movie, Night Riders. I like Tom Hiddleston in the film as well. I was surprised that he did a film so gory. In remembrance of Roger Corman, who lived to 98 years old, I wanted to ask what your favorite Corman film is. Mine is a toss-up between Mask of Red Death and the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Valentine's Day Massacre, an all-star cast: Jason Robards, George Segal, Bruce Dern, Jack Nicholson, Clint Ritchie, David Carnary, Ralph Meeker, Dick Miller, etc. A bit of trivia: Jason Robards can be seen in the promo photo of Return of the Living Dead. He was supposed to play Bert before pulling out of the film to be replaced by Clu Gulager. I mean, Clu is so good in Return of the Living Dead, but Jason Robards would have fucking killed it too. Shit! Did I ever tell you never get those goddamn tanks? Return's one of the second favorite. That or Dawn, I can't pick. Film ever made. Favorite Roger Corman movie. That's tough. That is tough. Boy, I really like the Poe ones, and I even like Haunted Palace, which is a Lovecraft one. So, boy, I don't know if I have a favorite. It'd either be Bucket of Blood, I really like that one, or try to think which Corman one would I pick. They're all so cool. Usher, not Pit of the Pendulum. Mask of Red Death's pretty good, but I which one of the ones did he direct? I might pick something like The Raven or Comedy of Terror. Those ones are really funny too. It's hard. I like a lot of them. You know, I don't dislike any of them, but I don't think any of his movies stand above any of the other ones, if that makes any sense. So, Nick Moule from Belgium. The new Crimson Peak release looks so tasty you might just want to consume it. Senor Del Toro is a master craftsman. You can't go wrong with Tom Hiddleston as the lead, right? Feel free to check him out in the dystopian extravaganza that is High Rise. He's frightfully good. Yeah, that is, who's that director? He just did a bunch of movies. He's very popular. Kill List. What the fuck? Ben Wheatley. There we go. I knew it would come to me. And who doesn't love Little Monster creature features? Leprechaun. Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. The Gate. Unwelcome. I adore all of them. Questions. Which little critter movie freaks you out the most? Don't Be Afraid of the Dark still gives me chills. Oh, it is, as a kid, the one that freaked me out bad, and it gave me nightmares for years, and I can never remember the movie, is The Offspring, a.k.a. From a Whisper to a Scream, with Cameron Mitchell and Clu Gulager, we just talked about, and Vincent Price, Susan Tyrrell. But it's an anthology by Jeff Burr, who passed away last year, I think. Jeff Burr, R.I.P. This is his first directorial debut, and there is a segment in that with Clu Gulager, and there's a little creature in that born of necrophilia, which is nasty as fuck. A little creature scared the shit out of me as a kid, so I'll go with that one, The Offspring. I have the poster, actually, the original, a.k.a. From a Whisper to a Scream. I prefer the Offspring title. But you feature a lot of prison movies on the show. Do you think jail ever changes people for the better? Who is that? Stanley Tucci was the leader of the Crips, I believe, and he went to prison and he wrote kids' books and shit. I mean, they executed him anyways, but hey, I mean, maybe he was better. I think Danny Trejo, right? He was in prison and he came out and he's doing great. Charles Dutton came out. I don't know. I've never been to prison. I don't know these people personally. You know, it is what it is. It's a hard question to answer. There are lots of film festivals going on or coming up. What would Mrparka Film Festival look like? Ooh, I don't know. It depends. You'd have to give me a theme, and I could come up with some movies for you. We'll do that. because I don't want to be so broad that I could pick anything. I need a theme in the film festival. Maybe I could pick an actor or a subgenre, and I would do it that way, or just do all sequels. All sequels that I prefer. Underrated sequels or something like that. Friday Night 2's in there if we do underrated sequels. Try to enjoy life as much as you do the movies. Till next time, God willing. Thank you. Coastline FX. Haha, your leprechaun sounds like he spent most of their life in India. Adele, India. Yeah, I probably did. Kentucky Kentuckinator. The weird thing about the Maniac 2 is the original Maniac is like Taxi Driver, but as a serial killer movie, and Maniac 2 is like a horror take on King of Comedy, but it came out before the Scorsese film this time. Weird stuff, dude. It is weird, right? Like, it is strange that it's just like any New York filmmaker's like, I'm just gonna, like make a Scorsese pitch. Oh, just maybe all those movies that take place in New York or people from New York, or you have Joe Spinella just like has to have a New York bend to it, and it all goes back to Scorsese. Who knows? Kirk4430. Dave, last week's episode, someone asked you about your home theater system. You mentioned you have an 85-inch Samsung 4K TV as well as a 4K Blu-ray player. I have a Panasonic Plasma. The picture is still excellent. I was wondering in your opinion if it's worth to upgrade to 4K TV as well as 4K player. Thanks for doing what you do. I look forward to watching your videos every Tuesday morning. Thank you. I would. But I mean, what size TV is yours? I mean, nowadays you can get one good deal on something. I don't know if I'd go Samsung again. Maybe I go Sony or something. I definitely would want to try a different brand than Samsung, but it doesn't mean Samsung's awful. I just want to try something else. I would upgrade, but that's just me. And you got to do it when the time's right, when you actually have disposable funds. You don't want to be upgrading when you're completely flat broke. MJ, there's another slasher set cans, but it is much sillier that I love. Fear City, a family-style comedy. That's 91 or 94. I actually that's an Italian movie, if I'm not mistaken. I almost watched that. I had watched a big chunk of it, but I just, for some reason, I couldn't get into it. When I go through the 90s, again, I'm going to hit 91, 94, which I did already, but I'll watch a lot of the ones I missed. That'll be on the list. I'll watch that eventually. Way Up, dude. Thank you. He gave me his thumbs up and stuff. User, this name is weird. JB5HO, Beach, whatever. 1815. Watched Crimson Peak earlier and literally said that out loud several times. Haha. I was absolutely blown away by the picture quality. Yeah, Crimson Peak looks fucking phenomenal on 4K. Hudson3838. Nice one, Dave. The Tomb of Ligeia is my least favorite of the Corman Price movies. Not a lot happens. Too much talking for me when his Price not weird and strange in those Corman movies. Ligeia did have some good scenes, and it's not every day you hear Price scream, "Get that pussy off my face." You're right? He doesn't have his mustache either. He's got this weird fucking goggles. I think he looks stranger in those than he did. He doesn't in House of Usher. He doesn't have his mustache either. I don't think. Fat Pig the Conqueror. Love that name. Can't believe you mentioned Dabbleverse or the Dabbleverse. Warning, Dave. It's insane and highly addictive. I don't really know what it is. Somebody else mentioned in the comments. But this question of the week. Let's ask the worst horror film of 1981. Let's be a little. I'm in 82. What's the worst horror film of 1982? Let's be negative this week. Fuck it. Worst horror film of 1982. Make sure it is listed as a horror film on Internet Movie Database, or you consider it a horror film, and it was released on Internet in 1982. Thank you. And let's, we're out of here. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a good one.